Hello, everyone, and welcome again to Satsang, your Sunday Satsang. Kind of like church, only not. Church or mosque or synagogue or temple or wherever you happen to go. Not quite the same. There was a subject that came to me to just speak a little bit about as people are joining and liking and sharing and subscribing. As that's happening, um, I wanted to talk about this because it comes up a lot, and really, when you look at it, it's such an odd phenomena. And I called it "How to Calm That Voice in Your Head." And it's actually kind of an interesting phenomena that we humans have a voice in our heads. Other critters don't. They don't have these cluttered minds. They don't have self-derogatory conversations going on. They don't have self-sabotage. They don't have all these negative comments. Well, one of the most significant parts of spiritual awakening, and in fact, for me, the most important one in the beginning, is the recognition that that voice in your head is not you. It is the voice of conditioning. It is not your voice. It is the voice of conditioned patterns. Thoughts form patterns. Look, everything in the universe is a pattern, isn't it? It's a pattern of energy. If you break it all down, you get to exactly the same place, right? And there's gone beyond the fundamental particles and atoms and all that, down to this just mysterious emptiness that everything just kind of arises out of. No matter how complex or simple the shape, no matter how varied it is, all the different elements, it gives rise to the periodic table and all of the elements that we know of it. It gives rise to the subatomic particles and the quantum and everything else. I'm not going to go into right now what that is. Right? That's for a later subject, but consider that it's exactly the same energy, that everything has a pattern, doesn't it? We recognize it. We say that's a rose, but what we're really looking at is a particular conditioned pattern of a particular kind of energy. Well, thought is a particular kind of energy, and like everything else in the universe, it molds itself into patterns. So thought ends up becoming repetitive. It becomes a loop. Right? It gets into a particular shape and it stays there. Everything does, right? Everything wants to stay in its shape. That's kind of the primal desire to survive in this form, and it works for a while, and eventually all forms have to kind of collapse back into the emptiness. So when you're thinking about thoughts, or when you're looking at thoughts, what you're looking at are patterns of thought that we call thinking, but they're just patterns of thought that have been put in place in response to the environment in which you happen to grow up. Because thought, thinking, assessing, reason, rationality are all attributes that human beings have. We have this capacity to create descriptive models of our experience in such a way that we can communicate to others. So we can both talk about an apple and we both know what we're talking about. Now, my experience of it, when I taste it, and your experience of it could be completely different. There's no way we can know, right? Your experience of everything is very intimate, right? You can be laying next to the love of your life, but you can't share the dream you're having with them. There's a private place. So how do you calm that voice? You see, for the vast majority of people, that voice is not positive. It is not encouraging. It is not a cheerleader. It's exactly the opposite. It's saying, what are you going to do that for? You're not going to, you're going to fail. Why write that? Nobody's ever going to read it. Don't start that. It'll fail. You know you're never going to get anywhere with it. That's the stupidest idea I've ever seen. Now, where did these thoughts come from? Well, they came from your early childhood. They're what your parents said to you, either directly said it or energetically communicated it in such a way that basically you were diminished to the point where the thought patterns, because there's no power on your side to contradict it, because there's no capacity for discrimination yet. It just receives what the parent says as absolute truth, and then the entire energy system, the thoughts, the sensations, and the emotions, all conform themselves to match it. And then we get this idea that these thoughts are myself, and that these thoughts are referring to me. So when the thought, and sometimes it can be a thought of I am so stupid. It can be actually in second person too. You could say, God, you're so stupid, right? Which is kind of funny. I mean, that's closer to what, to the parents, isn't it? You're stupid, not I'm stupid. But we internalize it. We become that. We take on that voice. We give that voice authority. We assume that it's talking about us, and in fact, it's not. And this is the thing that has to be seen. As long as I regard those thoughts as being true, as having authority, there's just no way in the world that I can possibly be free of them, because I'm engaging in them. I'm feeding them. It also is absolutely no good to try to try to change your thinking. I'm going to think different thoughts, because the thoughts themselves aren't the issue. The thoughts are a reflection of an underlying belief. The underlying belief being I'm not enough in some way, right? I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not resourceful enough. I'm not rich enough. I'm not spiritual enough. That's always the underlying assumption, and then that manifests itself as thought. So when I say to disbelieve them, is to recognize that thoughts aren't a problem in and of themselves, but they come from somewhere. They originate somewhere. They originate in a belief, and the beliefs are the real energetic pattern that has been set in place. If your parents were diminishing to you, subtly or overtly, you will have an energetic assumption, a belief that I'm not worthy of it, right? That I deserve to be diminished. And the thing about it is that when those patterns are in place, and they go and they are unchallenged, right? They will so shape your perception of experience that it will seem as if what they are asserting is actually true. And because the whole energy system of the body is actually connected to everything else in the universe, it is not separate. That's an illusion of our perception. It can create events that would seem to confirm the very thing that those thoughts are affirming, the very thing you're experiencing as that voice in your head. When I teach inner reconciliation, and actually in several of the classes I've done, I will refer to that voice as the robot. And I chose that term. Eckhart Tolle uses the word pain body, right? But I really like I really like the term robot because it shows what it actually is. So when it says, boy, you're really stupid, right? Or I'm really stupid, right? That's a voice, right? But, Siri could tell you you're stupid, right? You can ask a question and Siri says, I'm sorry, I don't know that, right? Now, there's no I there, is there? There's no sentience there. There's no self-aware being saying I. It's a robot that's simply saying I. So now that robot has been programmed to say all sorts of nasty things about you, all sorts of demeaning things, stuff that drains your confidence, right? And you realize that it is a robot. Right? You realize that it's just a program playing. Right? There's nobody there. There's no truth in it. It's not factual. It's just a record playing. It's an MP3 playing, and there's no consciousness behind it whatsoever. So I like it. I like using the term robot because a robot's like that. They could build a robot, and they're getting close, that is so lifelike that we can't actually tell the difference. Excuse me, I muted to cough. We can't actually tell the difference. They will appear to be very human, reacting, maybe even laughing, smiling. But in fact, there's nothing there. There's no one there. You couldn't hurt their feelings. Even if you could program it, say something nasty to it, and it would cry. Right? But there's no feelings there actually being hurt. This is the nature of that voice. Just that shift in perception, that voice that you've gotten so used to, uh, and that you've invested with so much authority, right? There's actually nobody there at all. So where does the authority that it has actually come from? Well, you are empowering it. It doesn't have any. There's nobody there. It has no power. There's no authority. It has no conviction. Nothing. Right? So everything that it possesses is actually yours, being projected on it as if there was something actually there. Can you take that in for just a moment? That voice in your head is not you. Now that begs the question, well, then who am I? If none of these voices in my head are me, then who am I? Now, you don't have to go immediately to that question in order to reap the benefit of recognizing that the robot voice is not your voice. And so whatever it's saying is just a program and not actually true. That is enough to completely shift your entire experience. Because remember, the dominant energy that you are living in, and that dominant energy manifesting itself as thought and emotion and sensation, right? The dominant belief will create a life that reflects it. So if you see that those dominant beliefs aren't true, right? Even before you've seen what is true, the very act of dismissing what isn't true begins to reshape the inner environment. Because remember, your nervous system is totally adaptive. If you shift the environment in which it is existing, it will, sometimes quickly, sometimes a little bit more gradually, reconfigure itself to fit that environment. So if you become this safe and loving place, recognizing that the unsafe and unloving thoughts are not you, they're not coming from you, right? They've got nothing to do with you except that you believed them unwittingly. Just to recognize that creates a new environment of inner space, and will make all the difference in the world. That's how you calm and quiet that voice. In a lot of meditation practices, there's an attempt to make it be quiet, right? And there's breathing exercises you can do, and yoga postures and mudras and all sorts of things with the idea of making the mind quiet. If you can see that there's a struggle with that. Most people, anybody who's tried, most have failed. It's not actually worked. But what happens if you lose interest in it? What if it simply doesn't get your attention? First off, it won't matter whether it's there or not, right? But if it doesn't matter if it's there or not, there's nothing feeding it. You've unplugged the fan. It may take it a while to slow down, but it's not ever going to speed back up again. And eventually it slows down and stops. And the only time thought arises is when it's needed. Now, that's a Buddha state, right? So we don't have to put that on the ideal. Oh, my thoughts are still coming, right? The only thing you have to be concerned about is, are these thoughts true or not? And if you don't know, don't believe them. I don't know if it's true or not. Am I a jerk? Am I incompetent? When I work with people in private or in group, it's one of the things that we do. We bring these things out, right? I just never get it right. Oh, okay. I've never gotten it right. I've never, ever gotten it right. Take it and amplify it. And then little by little, go, well, that's not completely true. I generalized that to a truth, but that's not completely true. There's been a lot of times when I've done really well. Right? Oh, so it's not completely true. And it doesn't have to be true forever. So there's ways through self-inquiry that you can begin to break these things down, because they seem to have a lot of authority in the beginning. At any rate, that is how you go about calming that voice in your head, until eventually it becomes it's either totally quiet or it's extremely supportive and encouraging. It becomes an incredibly powerful tool that moves your life forward in all sorts of wonderful, wonderful ways. So welcome everyone once again to Satsang on this beautiful day. Happy Halloween to all of those of you who may be in party mode or were last night, because there were probably a lot of Halloween parties last night. Despite the lockdown, we tend to want to gather anyway. And all the parents that are maybe out right now with the kids trick-or-treating instead of in satsang, you're forgiven. Yeah, you're allowed to take care of the little ones. So I'm going to go through here and say hello to everybody and see what questions there are today. And once again, I always like to point out that even if I don't answer your question specifically, all questions do get answered. The very fact that you hold a question to be asked means that the answer already exists. And whether it comes from my mouth or from something inside of you that actually takes a hold of those thoughts and molds it into an answer, or if it comes through some completely unexpected means, the question and the answer are one. For every question, there is an answer. If there's an ear, there must be a voice. So, hello, Crispin. Satsang time. Want to thank you for your steadfastness. So you're so welcome. I want to say the same thing to you. Robbie in Romania, Rosario in Madrid, Ursula in Portugal, Milo. Hi, Milo. Hi there. Who and how would we be if the disconnection hadn't happened? What would the world look like? If the disconnection, first off, let me say that it's really important that, boy, where to take this? How far down the rabbit hole do you want to go? In order for us to develop into fully conscious, fully aware, enlightened beings, the disconnect must happen. It's not an accident. It is what must happen in order for awakening to take place. Otherwise, we would simply be like children or animals our entire life, completely in harmony with nature, right? Not suffering, but not self-aware. In order for self-awareness to emerge, that sense of separation must emerge, because that's what sets us on the path and brings us back home, so that we consciously now recognize that there is no separation. Whereas for children and animals, they know it, but they're not consciously aware of it. This is the gift of being born a human, to be consciously aware of this. It is, in a sense, it is the universe aware of itself. Because, I mean, there's There is no universe without consciousness. So the question would then be, if the disconnection hadn't happened and we became self-aware while maintaining that harmonious, perfect balance in nature and our relationship to all things, right? You can see how that couldn't really happen, right? Right, that way. But if it did, or after it does, disconnection, what would we be like? Well, in essence, it's you would feel on a visceral level the union and unity with all things. Matter of fact, there wouldn't be other things. Everything you perceive, although it appears to have a discrete form that is different from something else, you would recognize that there's simply two manifestations of exactly the same thing. That the essence of it is that essential oneness, and I am that. You know, the Aboriginal tribes, Native Americans, and those, and all over the world, prior to the advent of agriculture 12,000 years ago, which created a completely different sort of state of mind. That's how they saw things. They didn't see things as being scattered. They didn't see humans as being better or worse, just different. They regarded all life as brothers and sisters, all having the same origin. And in a lot of cases, they were more powerful. And if you look in the realm of nature, you know, there are some animals, looking at it purely from, you know, surviving on an animal level, they're way better suited for it than us. Many of the tribes in Africa, the hierarchy of beings was not humans on top. It was first the elephant, then the lion, then the anaconda, and then us. Because we're no match for anacondas, lions, or elephants. There's a lot of that we weren't a match for, but we could, you know, we could scamper enough to stay alive, which we did, right? So this idea of being separate is just, it can be very mild and very easily corrected, but for most of us, because it's become so ingrained, right? Even now, you know, the consciousness movement and the self-help movement, which got started in the 80s, for all the benefit that it did, put all the emphasis on me. It really is the whole era of I above all else, right? Now, that just kind of doubled down on the whole separation thing. Law of attraction comes along and says you attract your life. So somebody's got a bad life, you know, you can look down and go, well, you attracted it. And I've seen people say that with that nasty of a tone, right? There's no we-ness in that. There's no community in that. There's not a balance between individual, the I and the we, right? And so what the absence of separation would look like, and what the world would look like. What I would recommend is this. Put all of your attention into breaking down the illusion of separation, because it is an illusion. Remember, you're not really separate, right? The separation never actually happened. It is only the belief in the separation that happened, the beliefs being so strong that they shape our perception. So now when we look around, we see separate objects, even though the object isn't separate, right? If you were zoomed down to the level, to the molecular level, right, down to the level where you just see the molecules and the space between them, right, which is orders of magnitude more than the actual molecules themselves, you could not discern any object whatsoever. There would be no objects, because you can't see them, right? Because they only exist at a certain level of perception. And at this level, you would just see different swirling little vortexes and collections and clusters of stuff that was closer together, farther apart, more dense, less dense. But the idea of an object out there that exists independent of my perception of it, and me as an object here, because that's the essence of the separation. I am the body. I stop here, right? And so I'm an object. The world is an object. And so this is my whole model for existing, that this is the world. Well, you're not the body. Eradicate that, and where's the separation? If I'm not the body, then I'm a consciousness containing the body. It is simply an experience I'm having. And then what's the difference between the experience of this body or this cup or this microphone? From this point place of conscious awareness, everything in it is part of consciousness. It's like pure space. Everything is in the space, isn't it? And you can't have anything without the space, right? So according to the prevalent scientific view of things now, space itself has coagulated into these various forms. So what you're looking at is basically condensed space, right? Which means it's all the same substance. None of it is disconnected. So you don't stop here, right? The boundary between you and other is no more real than the boundaries between countries. Right? Those borders don't exist. They're mental fabrications. But this is the practice. This is the practice. This is what is meant in the the teaching of Bodhidharma and the Heart Sutra as breaking down the walls of the mind. The mind has created a wall of separation between this and that. You've never actually been separate. You were only taught to believe you were separate, and the the reference point that gives that authority is I am the body. If I am the body, then yes, I am separate from that. Right? But if I'm not, then the body and this and that and the flowers and the trees are all in me, and therefore all are me. But this me is not a personal I attached to a body. This me is the universal I, the one, the Satchit Ananda, the Supreme Being, the being of all. I'll leave it at that. I certainly could go on. I certainly could go on about that for a while, but I'm going to leave it at that. Ursula says, thank you for thinking of the time change. Oh, you're welcome. I hope everybody got the email in time. I woke up early this morning and said, oh, God, I better tell people. The whole time zone thing is a tool of the devil. Time zones, time changes, because you guys even go on it different than we do, right? So what I'm going to do, so you don't have to go back, right, and go back to the old time, is I'm actually going to change the time next week, and I'm going to start doing it an hour earlier. So those of us in North America, Satsang will be at, it will be instead of 12 and 3, it'll be 11 Pacific and 2 o'clock on the East Coast. It'll remain the same time you guys are here right now over there in Europe. I don't know what to make of the Southern Hemisphere, Australia and the like, which are actually springing forward instead of falling back. This actually helps me because once I go to Europe, I don't want to be doing satsang at 11 o'clock at night. It'd be more like around 8 that I'll be starting. Robbie, would it be a better approach to try to find ways to love people naturally first instead of trying to be of service? Because it's the spiritual way everybody says to be. Yes. If you're being of service to be spiritual, you're not really of service, right? It's a business deal. And so, yeah, first things first. It's not to say I should not do anything for anybody. I have to first, conquer. No, of course, because it's not pure, right? It's not purely this or that. It's not, I've got to love everybody and then I can be of service, or, I'm doing it purely for me. It's a continuum. It's a gradient. So there's there is something in it for me when I help others. When I do some kind of service on any level, I feel good, right? So I do get a payoff. I get a payoff being here, right? I get somebody answer somebody's question, and they have an aha moment and a breakthrough, and their heart opens, or there's some relief. I feel great. I get a payoff. That's not the primary reason I do it, right? The primary reason I do it is because I have no choice. This is, I really don't. It is my nature, right? I was built to do this. So I'm digressing a little bit. Let's go to, yes, how do you come to actually love people naturally? Well, the answer is very simple. You come to understand what love actually is, right? And you begin to apply it to you. Now, I don't mean you have to love yourself first before you can love anybody else. That's a platitude, and it's not really true. What it means is that the love that you want to express towards others, you also simultaneously need to express towards yourself. And what is that? This love is the feminine love, the passive love, the receptive love. It is the love of allowing. It is allowing yourself to be who you are, to feel what you feel without judging it. So I feel this way, and somebody says that you shouldn't feel that way, it's not spiritual. Well, all that does is create an inner schism. It creates the separation, right? Because I am feeling that. And now I'm feeling guilty about feeling it, and I try to not feel it, right? And so I suppress it. I try to push it out of the way. But the fact of the matter is, it's there. I am feeling it. So the fact comes before anything else. I am feeling it. If I wasn't feeling it, there couldn't have been any kind of reaction to it whatsoever. So that feeling was there first. So let's take away all of any ideas about what should be felt or how it should be approached or what I should do about it or any of that, and just be with the feeling as it is. Right. That willingness to be with it as it is, even if you're not happy with it or don't like it or want it to go away, that is love. Love is a willingness to be with whatever is here in this moment without judgment, without saying it's got to be something different, right? Now, there may be a feeling you wish it was something different, but to just acknowledge this feeling is here, I am feeling it, right? So I'm going to accept the fact that I'm feeling it, and I'm going to allow it to be here. That's love. That is the essence. That's unconditional love. Love isn't this just warm, fuzzy feeling that you have about everybody, right? Right. So that you're totally in love with somebody and you think you're supposed to feel that way about absolutely everybody. It isn't true, right? Right. So it starts inwardly because this relationship you have with yourself and your willingness to be present with your own feelings is the foundation by which you can be present with other people's feelings without judgment, right? Which means you come to a level of wise love, which is an understanding love. It's not a love that's being forced. You should love your enemies, right? It's a love that understands why they are the enemy, why they think the way they do, why you feel the way you do, and to recognize that in all situations, nobody's right and nobody's wrong. And so to be completely willing to be present with my own feelings opens up the door for those feelings to be transmuted. Some of them just fall away because they aren't valuable anymore. But some of them were really actually very valuable things that because you wouldn't let yourself feel them, they got distorted, they got twisted out of shape, right? And if you're there just with more curiosity than judgment, they can tell their story because it's just a feeling inside of you. There's no reason to reject a feeling. There can be no such thing as an unnatural feeling, right? So this relationship you begin to have with yourself, that is your inner world, all the voices and stuff, even the voices in your head that I talked about earlier, to allow them to be there, not to fight them. Right? And when you do that, you find that there's a power there, right, that is not aggressive. It's not the masculine, go fix it and assert things. It's the feminine. It's the power of actual love, because you are standing in this position of of total allowing, right? Which means nothing can move you. This is the ultimate power. This is the power of the feminine. This is the goddess energy. It's an unmovable allowing, unmovable receptivity. So you can see that the question, I need to be of service to be spiritual, doesn't even. It's another level altogether. You've transcended that, right? The very act that you do this for yourself is a service to all humanity. The highest service we can do for humanity is to wake up, to become awakened, because that holds the candle up and points the way to a glorious life for all. Because when you do that in you can do it in somebody else. And so it becomes, to the degree I'm doing it for me, to that exact same degree I'm doing it for others. And that's the highest service. Holding somebody in their highest light, what could be a higher service than that? Really, with your whole heart, recognizing the infinite potential of every individual, even though they don't know it yet. What could be more valuable than that? That is spiritual service of the higher order. And that may bring you to a place of being in service for others, sometimes in really mundane ways, holding the door for someone. Sometimes it'll be, serving lunch at at a shelter or something. It could be getting on YouTube and doing satsang. It can take many different forms, but the essence of it is this fundamental open-hearted relationship with the self in me, which can then see that same self in you and see all the obstacles in you that keep you from recognizing yourself as the self. And that's love. It's not the kind of love that's dainty or it's a nice feeling, right? It's not the kind of love that sits up on the shelf like fine china that only comes down on holidays and the kids still have to use the plastic plates. Right? It's very earthy. It's very gritty. It can handle anything. It can get right down in the mud with anything whatsoever, because it is the pure power of allowing, the unmovable nature of love itself, which is the feminine principle. I'm emphasizing this because of the class I'm going to be doing in less than 2 weeks now, which is about feminine power, right? And what it really is. And that's it. I will be letting everybody know about it. I don't have all the stuff yet for registering, but within the next couple of days, people start being able to register for this very special class. And, people have wanted me to do something like this for a very long time. I wanted to do something for a very long time. And I don't know, there's a sense of urgency about it now to create a workshop, one exclusively for women. Only women are allowed. And in fact, there'll be a follow-up that one of the students who's here today, as a matter of fact, who knows about things like various kinds of embodiment exercises and rituals and that sort of stuff, will be teaching a class after a workshop for you folks in the class. And I won't even be there because these rituals require no men at all. So it's a woman who will be teaching that. I'm out of the picture completely because I will disturb. I will disturb the energy. So that's actually just a new bonus thing I just came up with. And Steffi, who's here today, is the one who's volunteered to lead that, and she's got a lot of experience in it. So um, it's going to be a really great thing. And a week after that, I will be doing one for the men. And then after that, I won't be doing a whole lot because I'm going to be in between Seattle, Phoenix, and then eventually Frankfurt. So, so it's my little plug there for the upcoming workshops with unabashed self promotion. Faith, hello, my chic, and everyone here. I love you. I love you too, Faith. Beautiful, beautiful girl. Ava, namaste, and everyone from Poland. Suzanne, hi, GP, and all. What is Hollywood really? What is Halloween really? What is Hollywood really? And where does it come from? What does it mean? Well, if you're 5 years old, like my granddaughter, it means getting to dress up like Elsa and getting candy. That's all it means, right? And her definition of it is just perfect. Should be Elsa freezing things and getting candy. That's that's all it means. Does it have an absolute meaning? No. All of these holidays that have become just kind of watered down little traditions that we do, and traditions are nice. Rituals are important to us. We get really lost when we don't have rituals, so we make them. Your morning cup of coffee isn't really about the coffee; it's a ritual. Right? When I see the line of people, instead of just skipping it and going somewhere else, the line of people at a Starbucks, right, to get their morning coffee, it's like that's a ritual, right? And these things give meaning to our life, right? Now they get distorted by the culture. Christmas doesn't have any meaning anymore. All of these holidays had pagan origins, and pagan in the West is like a bad word. It isn't a bad word. The better word is that they originated in nature religions that were close to the earth, religions that recognized that the people, human beings and animals and plants and the entire earth were one. We're one functioning entity, and we had a role, we served that role. They have a role, they serve that role, and together we all survive. That's gotten completely distorted, and these things have just completely lost their meaning. Christmas when I was a kid and Thanksgiving, nothing was open. The next day some stores would be open, but little by little it just got encroached by consumerism and capitalism. To now, midnight of Friday, right? The stores open, sometimes earlier, right? So the holidays don't have any meaning anymore, right? That is, they have no accepted cultural meaning. So, what does Halloween mean to you? For me, nothing. Absolutely nothing. I live in an apartment. There won't be any trick or treaters, right? Coming around. There are very few in the city, right? I'm sure there'll be somewhere my son lives. He's got a house, and there's other houses around with a lot of kids that play. My only connection with it is my 5-year-old granddaughter. Right. So for her, it was fun. We were talking about it, and she showed me her costume and the like. That's the meaning it has. That's the only meaning it has. It has for me. Um, so this is part of the new earth we're creating. Right? We're making our own new rituals. We're making our own sacred events, sacred spaces, because we don't have them anymore. Everything has become profane because everything's interest is commercial. So you can make Halloween be whatever it is you want. Right? You can turn it into a day for like the day of the dead, and the Christians say, oh, it's worshiping Satan. No, it's an honoring of people who've died, right? It's an honoring of spirits, and there was an idea that they may have been able to come back to life at some point, and all of it has mythological origins. They all come out of various kinds of stories, because remember, one of the ritual is simply embodied myth. It's when we act out a culture defining story, a people defining story, a tribe defining story. It gets acted out, and thus you partake of it, right? So now in our world right now, and in the modern West, that's not the case. It's all the sacredness has been taken out of it, right? So it's up to you and me to put it back into it, right? Every now and then, not all the time, but some Christmases I went out and bought like a FICA tree once, and I put some lights on it. Or I'll buy a little something. I like actually having a little celebration for the equinoxes and for the solstices. It feels very connected to the earth to do that. You'll see, there's a lot of those going on. So yeah, it all of our regard as our cultural events in the West, especially in the United States, they have all lost their mythological import, and so they don't have any meaning at all. They serve the interest of commerce, or they're criticized by some religious point of view, some fundamentalist point of view. So that it's a loss, right? It'd be really wonderful if we all had these kind of cultural events that we would agree on, and we had a common experience, and there's a common wonder and mystery to it that's really beautiful. But since we don't have that, we have to make it ourselves, right? Because we need it. We need sacred ritual, right? And if Halloween doesn't float your boat, make something else up. It doesn't even matter. Petunia Festival. It doesn't matter. There was a great ritual when I lived near San Francisco, down in Gilroy, the Garlic Festival. And if the wind was coming north, you could smell it 100 miles north when they were harvesting the garlic. And so it was a ritualistic event. There were all these rituals around the harvest and around the planting, and and around the birth of children and weddings and all of these kinds of things. And they do give meaning. They do give meaning to our lives. So we just have to make our own. I encourage people to have a home altar, and on that altar put things. I'm going to be talking about that in the women's class as well. Things that empower you. Right? When you think of something that means power and authority, really kind of owning the best part of you, and you can find that expressed in some object. It doesn't have to mean anything to anybody else. It can be weird. It could just be a rock off the street, or it can be something like like the singing bowl, or it could be anything at all. A picture of somebody meaningful, a picture of you at a younger age when everything was working for you. They become the altar. So the altar is not a worshiping of something out there. It's a worshiping and a reconnection to something in here. So now you become the altar, and it's a manifestation of you. So yeah, hopefully that helps, Suzanne. I can't give you a definition because there isn't one, and I don't remember the original stories that eventually turned into Halloween. So, but remember, a lot of it they were nature stories from nature religions, which then got absorbed into the church, right? And then got changed into something else. They always mutate over time. There's just no way around it. And so we can just mutate them again. we made them up. We can make them whatever we want. Thank you. Annette Rockstar. Hi, all. What if one can't forget oneself? And what would help? Thanks. Don't put a burden on yourself. I've got to forget myself. Is that, because it can mean like I've got to just deny myself and be of service to others. You notice you're not really forgetting yourself. You're trying to force yourself into another position. What does forgetting oneself mean? It means transcending the false and coming into what's true. You don't have to forget yourself. Matter of fact, you can't forget the real self, because the real you is always here. Spiritual inquiry is about separating what is you and what isn't. Those that we have believed to be ourselves, but in fact are not. And because of the power of belief, the creative power of consciousness is such, whatever is believed to be true will become the lived experience, right? And then it will seem as if it is true, because ignorant of the process by which experience is created, we believe that it happened independently from my beliefs. And now I try to change circumstances, and right, I'm basically trying to fix the mirror, right, because I don't like what it's reflecting, right? So what you want to forget is everything you thought you were but aren't. And that is the inquiry that simply see, is this really true? Is this who I am? So when I present the idea that you actually are already the self, and you believe yourself to be other than that, if you can take that in even in a little bit, you'll start discerning between this thought that says something about me. What is it referring to? This thought, I'm just not enough, or I'm not good enough, or I'm not rich enough, I'm not talented enough, I don't have enough opportunity. That thought, is that I referring to the infinite, illimited, unlimited self? Or is that I referring to a limited view of you? Obviously, it's referring to a limited view of you. Is that really you? Is that the self? Or is that the false idea of the self that has taken shape in self-demeaning, self-limiting thoughts? The true self cannot be limited. Therefore, every limitation must be a belief. And in order for that to seem real, it must imagine a self that is limited. You following that? It's subtle, right? So it imagines you as a limited being and then complains about the limitations, trying to take this idea of a limited being and making them unlimited. Well, you can't do that. You can put wings on a bus, but it won't fly, right? So you have to challenge that. So any kind of idea that comes up, any kind of concept or idea or some kind of assertion about your nature, look at it and go, what's that referring to? What is the I that it's referring to? Is that the unlimited self? Is that the God self? Is that the infinite being? Well, then well, that can't be limited. Consciousness isn't limited. It can experience anything. Completely. It can even experience the sense of being limited. Right? That doesn't make it limited. It just means it can experience that. So you trace it all the way back and go, oh, there's a concept of an I that is separate, limited, less than, struggling. Is that really me, the self? And of course, there could be some tension there, because for so long you believe that it is the nervous system, your whole energy, the momentum of thought and feelings. Well, yeah, that's you. We're trying to fix you. And go, oh, I see. Even all of that is part of just the conditioned patterns that assumes I'm broken, assumes I'm limited, and somehow I've got to become unbroken and unlimited. It's a belief. Oh my God. It was never true. There never was that I. I am the I am. I am that I am. I am that I am that is beyond all opposites, that is beyond all limitations. And that understanding will simply deepen and deepen, and this other stuff will become less and less credible. The momentum slows down, and then thought begins to reorganize itself around this I am. The small sense of I am, the limited self, the egoic self, gets replaced, taken out, and all these guys now start orbiting around the true sun, the true, which I sometimes call the light at the center. It replaces the storyteller mind, the ego, with itself, and thus everything else begins to revolve around this. How's that, Annette? I know my answers today. I start and I kind of wander off in directions, but that's what's happening today. Not much I can do about it. I don't control what comes out of this mouth. I don't even control the mouth. Oh, Georgia in London. Hello, Georgia. Elaine. Hello, Elaine. My two buds in the wilds of southeast England. Ah, yes, on your adventure. Daryl laughed at wilds. Yeah. Peter, good evening from Italy once again. Trick or treat. Trick or treat to you. I'd trick or treat if people were giving out things, like fresh organic nuts and dark chocolates and all the cool stuff. Champagne. Yeah. Trick or treat and get champagne and dark chocolate. Yeah, it'd be worth it. Martin, hello. I wonder if a relationship is an obstacle on the way to truth. Are you in a relationship? Sorry if that's too personal, but I really noticed that I can't stay conscious with my partner. Um, well, I'm going to leave the personal question to the side because it's not important. Yeah. I know a lot of people, is G in a relationship? Is G in a relationship? I'm just going to leave that to the side. Um, is a relationship an obstacle on the way to the truth? It can be. It can also be a catalyst that speeds it. It's what you do with the relationship. It's not the presence or absence of a relationship itself. Sorry if that's not personal. I really noticed that I can't stay conscious with my partner. All right. So you've got a choice. You can either accept that you are struggling staying conscious with your partner and take it on as a personal thing now to go, okay, I have decided I can't stay conscious with my partner. Which is better? Get rid of the partner, get rid of the circumstances that appear to be causing my falling out of self-consciousness, or finding that sense of conscious, of staying present no matter what the circumstances are. Which would be closer to the truth? In the workshops I'm going to be doing for men and women, there will be entire sections dedicated to relationships. And I mean relationship, romantic, with your partner, right? And so, in its best form, a relationship, a true relationship between people, a true romantic relationship, and it doesn't matter if it's lesbian, gay, straight, or any combination of the above. That's unimportant. It is, do you create for each other a safe space, a home? It's inevitable in every relationship that at some point you're going to be dealing with your partner and she's going to be mom, right? And you're going to deal with your partner and he's going to be dad. The mommy issues and the daddy issues, they are going to come up. There's no such thing as this perfect thing. If you can stay conscious and recognize that it's happening, you have the most powerful environment possible for resolving those issues as quickly as possible. Much faster than just trying to work for them on yourself. So life and relationship serve the awakening, right? They don't hinder it, right? And the very fact you say, I can't stay conscious with my partner. Now, ask yourself this. Me not staying conscious, is it because of my partner, or is it because I believe that I can't stay conscious with my partner? It's the belief. It has nothing to do with your partner. If awakening, getting to the truth, requires me fixing, changing, and manipulating all sorts of things in my environment, I'm screwed, right? There's just no way you can do it, right? You'll finally get everything set. It's quiet, right? Everything is just the way you want it. You're meditating. Oh my God, I'm so there. And then the jet goes overhead. The truth is truth all the time. It's true now. It's true then. It's true whether you're with your partner. It's true when you're not with your partner. And truth and consciousness are one. Right? Become aware of the fact that you are aware of a sense that I'm not staying conscious. Well, it takes consciousness to see the characteristics that you are saying I am not conscious. Okay? Consciousness is sitting there looking at it, right? But you're believing that this circumstance represents not being conscious, when in fact it's happening to consciousness. Let your attention go from from the circumstances itself to the consciousness that is viewing them, and you will see consciousness is never absent. That's the truth. Now you have transcended all experience. And it could come in time that the relationship with your partner becomes even deeper than ever. It goes to a whole different new level. Or you could go your separate ways because it served its purpose, and anything in between. Right? So be really slow when your mind says stuff like, "I can't stay conscious with my partner." Wait a minute. Consciousness is who I am. I am always consciousness. So the idea that I can't stay conscious with my partner can't possibly be true. I am consciousness itself. Muji put it this way, and I just love the way he said it. I am before the idea that I could forget or the idea I needed to remember was believed. I'll say that again. I am pure consciousness, pure presence. This is what I am. Before the idea I could forget or the idea I needed to remember was believed. Consciousness can't forget itself. You can only forget an idea. But the act of forgetting requires consciousness there to go, I forgot. Right? I'm drawing your attention to the actual nature of consciousness, whereas it's often taught and almost universally believed in spirituality that consciousness is a particular state. Presence is a particular state of consciousness. It's blissful. It's ego death. It is, I am one with everything. That's not it. Okay? Because that's an experience, because tomorrow you can feel completely separate from everything. But that which felt the oneness and that which feels the separation has not changed. Which means, because it hasn't changed, it's the same, and it will be the same. That's the truth. That consciousness is the truth. So, can there be any obstacle to the truth? I hope your answer is no, there can't. Because it would be the truth perceiving the obstacle. It would be the truth perceiving whatever the circumstance that arose and the thought that called it an obstacle. You might even experience another thought that says, oh, it's an opportunity. Truthfully speaking, I remember times working on a piece of music, I'd get totally absorbed in it, and I would forget to save it. And the machine would lock up or something. And, 2 hours worth of work gone. And after a little ranting and raving and swearing and that sort of stuff, I'd sit down. And guess what? Every single time when I did it again, it was better. So it was an obstacle for me getting it done, or wasn't, right? It's all as to how it is perceived, right? But remember, the perceiving itself has no obstacles, because an obstacle has to be perceived. So perceiving's there first. It has no obstacles. Awareness has no obstacles. Does that help, Martin? Beautiful. Tatiana, hello from sunny Toronto. I think I have sun here today too. Yeah. I mean, it never gets here. There's like an hour or so in the afternoon. I make it a little direct sunlight, not the sun is low in the sky. But oh, yes, it is a beautiful autumn day, isn't it? Hello, Penny. Hello, Ava. Karen, hi, G. Oh, reading a question about partnership. What would an ideal relationship look like? What does marriage mean to you? Thank you. Well, I was describing it before. Maybe if I do an excerpt, I'll put these two together. Yeah. It's a relationship in which the number one motivation is is the final freedom, the liberation from limitation, the limitation from the false sense of self. Right? Now, that is a transpersonal ideal, right? And I'm dedicated to that whether I'm with somebody or I'm not. Now, if in the process of that dedication, that which helps it along is a relationship with another person, and that relationship with another person, sometimes what helps it along is not an ideal one. It's not the one you want. It's not the soulmate we dream of, right? It's you learn from everything, but I'm of a mind that we can learn without having it to be torturous or depriving. Okay? In which case, two people who are both on that on both on that hold that ideal, right? That ideal gives you something to unify around. So now it's no longer just what the culture says or what it's supposed to be or how this is supposed to look. And marriage is a cultural institution, it has nothing to do with the union of souls, right? You may get married, you may not. It means absolutely nothing. It's a cultural creation for the benefit of the culture. It's a social convention for the benefit of the society, right? And you can see down through history, marriage has never been about the happiness of the people in it. It's about to just make sure that the society is not destabilized by them going their separate ways, because it does have a destabilizing effect. Right? So that ideal relationship would be one in which there's enough consciousness on both sides that you can be with each other without judgment when the button gets pushed, because your buttons are going to get pushed. Said before, she is going to be mommy at times. You're going to be 6 years old, angry at mommy, right? Or you're 6 years old and angry at daddy. It's going to happen. The buttons are getting pushed. The question is, have you created an environment so safe that when that button gets pushed, the reaction takes place in a container that allows for it to be diffused and eventually the button disabled, right? A relationship that can do that is the best relationship you can possibly have. It's rare. It doesn't happen often because most people are going into relationships unconsciously, right? There's not enough consciousness there to be able to process something when it comes up, right? Because we haven't done it enough in ourselves. So there's a level of maturity that's required there for that to happen. And of course, the more you have an environment like that, the sweeter it gets, the intimacy, right? The the ability to ask for what you want. There's another one, right? It's actually safe to ask for what I want, right? And I might even get it, right? Being willing to do those things for each other on all levels, right? Including sex and that kind of an intimacy, including shared responsibilities and the like. And also a certain kind of, if you're both interested mostly in freedom, right, and what that really means, there's a beautiful dialogue that goes on. You're both discovering and bringing your discoveries home to share with one another. Plus, there'll be enough differences in what you're interested in that it won't become boring, right? There'll be cool new things coming in. So it's an alive thing. It's getting fresh energy, processing. Like every living thing, it has its food, right? The food is the love, the food is experience, the food is the compatibility, the food is the outside interests that come in and get transmuted in this living organism, which takes shape then as the external, uh, the moving out of that new transformed energy into the world. And one of the things the world needs most right now is examples of really good, mature relationships. Right? And of course, imagine that environment should that same couple want to have children. Imagine what that would be for the children, right? That capacity right? And that level of consciousness, it doesn't mean that they're not going to feel the sense that they're not going to have to go through their own fall in the whole thing. It's just that you're going to make it a whole lot easier. Right? You're going to know when to take your hands off and when to put them on, and so I guess it's kind of all over the place, but that's the ideal relationship, and that could that could take the shape of a marriage, right? It doesn't have to. It could take the shape of a marriage, and again, that's up to the people involved. It may be useful. It may be helpful. It may be a support to the essential relationship, and if it is, great. And if it isn't, don't. One of the beautiful things of being alive in these days, we don't have to do that anymore. Okay? We're not forced into something, so we can make real decisions. But what it does demand of us, what has to replace the cultural demands, the social overhead that gave some stability to it, we have to replace it with wisdom, right? Because we don't want something more chaotic, which is oftentimes what we get. It's got to be replaced with something higher, and that's what this represents. So, thank you, Karen. Hello, good people. Hello, Mark. Hi, GP and fellow travelers of the Kali Yuga. Yep, we're all together in this. Kali is a fascinating goddess, and Kali is a goddess. Right? Yeah, it's fascinating. I won't go into her now, but she's amazing. There's Patricia. Hello and love from Los Angeles. There's Ava having a conversation with Mark. Playan. Hello, Playan. Thank you so much for last week's satsang and helped me a lot. Great. Fantastic. That's why I'm here. Steph. Hi, G and friends. Happy Samhain. Much love. Ah, yes, there she is. Steffi, or Stephanie, is going to be the one leading the class for women only, even so for women only that not even G is there. And she's going to be doing, we haven't set the actual date yet. It'll be after the 11th. Because once we've laid the groundwork and the workshop, her bringing you into some kind of ritual and movement, and that's embodiment really is what it's going to be about. Will I know it'll sink in deeper. So, and thank you so much for volunteering to do that, Stephanie. It's really wonderful of you. Ava, yes, G, that voice in my head is not me, but still I'm now suffering because of this voice and somehow can't free myself of that suffering, not the voice. I should not believe this. I know. Right. Notice, Ava, if there's still some residual desire to make the voice go away. The desire to make it go away literally feeds it. You are giving it the status of an objective power that you have to do something about. Remember, it isn't objective. There's nobody there. It only means whatever you say it means. So you say, I'm suffering because of this voice. Am I suffering because of the voice, or am I suffering because I don't want the voice to be there? Am I suffering because I believe the voice is creating suffering? And in fact, my belief that the voice is creating suffering is giving me the experience of suffering. What is the experience of suffering? I want things to be different than they are. That's the essence of it, right? I don't like this. I'm against it. I want something else. That's suffering in a nutshell. If there's no resistance, fine, be their voice, right? Can you suffer? So the voice doesn't create suffering. Right? Your belief about the voice is creating suffering, right? And in fact, if our need is to become wiser, more perceptive, and more grounded in the truth, what better way for that to happen than for something constantly challenging you? That stone in your shoe that just keeps irritating you, reminding you let go. Right? I'm not the problem. Let me go. Right? And we make the mind, these voices, these beliefs, we turn them into entities. They're not entities. We believe we make Siri into something that's real. And in fact, when robots do get that lifelike, right, there will be people claiming they're sentient. And of course, we will have no way of knowing, because the only sentience you can possibly know is your own. You don't even know if I'm sentient. There's no way you can possibly tell. So you have to go with you, right? You're there, and there's this voice that you are experiencing. Is this voice an external, objective force operating on its own? Or is it simply a state of mind that you are in, that you've taken your power and said, this voice is causing me suffering? Did the voice say that? Does the voice believe it? Or is it you? Folks, everything is you. There is nothing objective. There's nothing inside of you that you have to get rid of. That's the sense of separation, that somehow there's me and then this over here. It's a mind. I got to do something with the mind. Or people's favorite these days, the ego. I've got to do something with the ego, as if it were an entity fighting you. There's nothing there. It's only a thought. So if I believe it's an entity fighting me, I have created an entity that is fighting me. I'm doing it. This is spiritual schizophrenia. I invent something. I then believe it that exists separate from me, and I suffer it because it won't do what I tell it to do. There is nothing separate from you. You have projected your power, which is unlimited, onto a thought and given it the status of objective reality, and then experiencing it as if it were an objective reality, and you created the whole thing. I should not believe it. This I know, right? Okay, now really believe it, right? Really know it, right? If you really know you shouldn't be believing it, you would not for 1 second allow yourself to believe a single thing it said, right? But it is undermining this knowing. And what's undermining it? This subtle notion, this subtle belief that there really is something I need to get rid of. And I know that you have personally experienced the moments when that's simply not there. It's just come back up again, a slightly different form, just going, okay, Ava, you're really getting this. Let's keep going. Let's keep going all the way to Buddhahood. Right? And, there's the Buddhas and the Christs, and right there, you need the devil. What's the devil's job? Poke and prod you, tempt you, try to trick you. Right? He's part of the package, right? He's not dragging you to hell. He's showing you where you're already there. He is the contrary one. The Satan just refers to, and Lucifer, they refer to the obstacle. Right? In the book of Job, that word that's used for the devil is the opposer, the obstacle. Right? And what's it about? It's just testing, bringing you to a higher level. Right? I got tricked again. Damn. All right, can't get me on that one anymore. So it's not these things aren't a problem. And you're being invited to see that, it has no independent existence. It is all in my mind. Therefore, there is no voice. There is no entity speaking. It's only a robot. And I'm not going to pay any more attention to that robot than I would to Siri. Ah, thanks, Ava. Beautiful, Ava. Let's see here. It's 1:19, an hour and 19 minutes. Let's see what we got in here. Any thoughts why some spiritual seekers? Thank you for asking. Okay, I think I can, yeah. If the questions slow down, I think I can get to the rest of them. So, Milo says, what's the difference between a therapeutic session where the teacher therapist triggers your fears, wounds, and what are the benefits of what that happens? If the teacher or therapist is good, is competent, and they have created a safe space, then it is a safe place for these triggers and traumas and deep stuff to come up, and they can come up because it is safe, right? The benefit of that is that when they come up, they dissolve because they're coming up in a safe environment. Remember, what created these things, these wounds and these fears, these traumas, was the environment wasn't safe. And what holds them in place is the assumption that the environment still isn't safe. And when we do work on ourselves, oftentimes, unfortunately, without intending it, self-help and most spirituality reinforces the dangerous space, because it's always trying to fix you, change you, make you different, which is exactly the environment, right, that happened in the first place. It wasn't your parents were brutally abusive. In some cases they were, but they were all restrictive, right? And so it wasn't safe to be yourself. So you had to be fixed and changed in some way, right? And this becomes a lifelong habit. Now, if the therapist or teacher is practicing inner reconciliation, and there's a few therapists here today listening that do this, you're creating a safe space. And in that safe space, the fears and wounds can come to the surface and detect they are now in a safe space. And remember, the nervous system is completely adaptive. So if it detects safety in the environment, it will first test to see if it's consistent. And if it is, it will begin to release the defensive behaviors that we regard as the fears, the wounds, all that inner stuff. In the process of doing that, the teacher may intentionally trigger one of those to come up. I will do that. You don't always need to. Sometimes they'll come up all by themselves, but oftentimes I will do that, but within the context of a safe environment. Because if that fear, that thing gets triggered and it comes up, but the environment is different than what it's expecting, because what it's expecting is danger because it wants to be defensive, and all of a sudden it comes up and it's in the environment of safety, it begins to go, immediately you can feel this a shift in the energy take place. So in that context, doing that kind of intentional triggering is extremely effective and useful. If it's done without that, and it was for a long time, I did ab reactions and cathartic events and trauma release that was more traumatic than the trauma in the first place, right? Because they weren't creating that safe space. They were forcing something to happen. The same is true for a lot of people who have had the Kundalini experience. Right? They weren't prepared for it. The environment wasn't safe. It wasn't open. You're supposed to practice for 10, 20 years before that, right? Because so the entire nervous system is ready for that influx of energy, right? So when the environment is created in such a way that it is safe to do so, then a triggering can be initiated if need be by a competent therapist or facilitator of some sort. It may be a trained therapist. It may be a spiritual guy like me. But when it is done in the right environment, Um, what happens is the nervous system finds itself in an environment it wasn't expecting. But because the environment is safe and not dangerous, it doesn't immediately recoil. It goes, oh, this is different. It's why I use EFT, because EFT communicates safety through touch. So even in the middle of a tumultuous traumatic event coming up, there's something in the environment that's contradicting it, saying it's safe. This nervous system senses that. It senses everything. It misses nothing. This misses everything. The rest misses absolutely nothing. Even a tiny shift in the sense of safety is detected and responded to. And so hopefully that answers your question, Mila. Judy. Hello, Judy. How do we change the negative thoughts and beliefs subconsciously? Thank you. Love. Right. These subconscious beliefs and patterns, the negatives. Remember those, the subconscious or unconscious, the deep layers are not thoughts, right? They're another layer. They're energetic. They're beliefs that have not taken form. They actually create the negative thoughts, which is why just trying to change thoughts doesn't work. Most people can't do it, can't hold a positive thought for very long and think, I'm going to fail. I can't manifest anything, right? No, because you're trimming the leaves and the roots are bad, right? So how then do we get to this? Well, first off, you have to know what this subconscious is. What it is are energetic assumptions. It is not a subconscious mind. It is simply the sum total of all of the reactive patterns and programmed response that got put into place early on in order to respond to the environment in the way which most guaranteed you would survive, which meant these behaviors had to be shown to the environment. These behaviors couldn't be shown to the environment. And it wouldn't matter if all the ones that weren't shown to the environment were the ones that were natural to you, and the ones being shown were completely unnatural to you, not you at all. It wouldn't matter to the energy whose job it is to protect you. The sum total of all of that, which is the nervous system's map of reality, that where it has pre-programmed every possible thing that can happen and how to respond to it. I mean, it's that good. I mean, it's amazingly good and efficient and thorough, right? So it's mapped everything, right? And when it does run into something new, it tries to avoid it, pulls back a little bit. It'll try to recreate the old environment, and if not, if it can't do that, it begins creating new stuff, but under the assumption that the environment is dangerous, right? That's its assumption. That is the most fundamental belief. It is not safe to be me, right? So if you want to get down to this level, you can't do it through any self-help technique that I know of. Not the law of attraction and positive list of aspects or changing thoughts or holding a thought for 17 seconds. None of that. None of that will work, right? Because the intention behind it is to fix something, which means you're simply embodying the same energy that created all those patterns in the first place. It detects no difference in the environment. It doubles down, and you may get a nice thought every now and then, but nothing substantial is going to happen. So what do you have to do? Simple. In inner reconciliation, I don't pay any attention to thoughts whatsoever. I only pay attention to the environment in which they're happening. You create a safe environment. You create what you didn't have then. You create it now. And because the nervous system operates in the now, right, is always interpreting what's happening in the now, it immediately gets the message, whoa, this is different. It is safe. And begins to respond. It begins now to adapt. And if that in safety, through the yoga of allowing, through some in some ways inner inquiry, the process of inner reconciliation, invite You're stepping into this place of total unconditional love, which means I accept what I'm feeling when I'm feeling it, right? And I strive then to let go of my inner resistance, let go of my inner judgments, right? To understand that all it's trying to do is keep me safe. And now I start to become safe for it. It can start to trust me. That's the safe environment. And that's when the deep stuff starts coming up. And that's when the nervous system starts reprogramming itself because it doesn't need that behavior anymore because it's not in that environment. That just goes away. It now starts creating new reactive patterns that match the new environment. And when that is an environment of safety, it becomes, instead of defensive, it becomes expressive. It starts supporting you in growth and improvement and bringing things into your life, the whole, all the things that we long for. So there it is in a nutshell for you, Judy. That's inner reconciliation in a nutshell. And I call it inner reconciliation because you're reconciling with this energy. It's not self-help, it's self-discovery. You're finding out who you really are and that you're still really there. But you are forced to be somebody else other than who you really are in order to survive. And so now we're just dropping everything that isn't you and we're liberating that which is. And you'll find that it's beautiful, it's lovable, it's perfect, it's everything you've ever wanted, you already are. You just believe yourself to be something else. And by belief, I mean the nervous system is interacting with the world as if you were somebody else. It has to get the message. It's safe. It's safe to come out and play. And it will. Every time. It doesn't take long. Hello, Melissa. Good to see you. Plan, I believe why my harm OCD has been so strong this month is probably because it feels threatened. I know it's not me. I just have to remember when it happens not to believe it. Yes. Very good. Yes. It's all you have to do. Right? It's not me. It's triggered. And yes, remember, all of these things get put into place, including OCD, as a defense mechanism. So it feels threatened because it thinks you're trying to get rid of the mechanism that's keeping you safe. Right? So you go, it's okay. Let's see. Maybe we can be safe without this behavior because it's costly. This takes a lot of energy. Maybe this energy could go other places. That's the way I approach it. EFT is very effective for this, by the way, right? To help get through it. And the process, the way I do EFT, which I think is the best. And I'm not the only one who says it, right? It's extremely effective because it takes this into account of kind of bringing the nervous system to the place where it sees, oh, okay, I got to stay safe. That's my job. But I can do it in ways that are easier, right? And it's, oh, cool. I can do that and free up energy from other stuff. And it will. Okay? So remember, it's not a problem. All of these things were solutions. They were solutions to a real problem, right? And so what we have to do is go and show that that problem doesn't exist anymore. So we don't need a solution to it, right? We can now find the solution for creative self-expression and freedom. Right. So thank you, Plan. Melissa K., how is fear transformed? By coming to see that it is imaginary. Now, this isn't, that's a bold statement. This isn't an intellectual, this is not an intellectual reframe. 99% of the things that we are afraid of are creations of the mind. They're an image of the mind that is frightening, that is almost always an expectation of what might happen in the future. And because it doesn't know what it actually is going to happen in the future, it appears to have the authority to say, well, it might, therefore I should be afraid in advance. Now, if you'll notice that belief, and it is pervasive, this is the belief under which the world works, right? makes it impossible to ever feel safe. Can you see that? Because yes, something always could go wrong. Something could go wrong, right? Which means if I have to be in a state of fear now to deal with what could go wrong later, I will never, ever, ever feel safe. As a matter of fact, to that point of view, feeling safe would lend you less safe. Think about it for a second. To feel safe makes you unsafe. This is the nature of that idea. Fear is the body, in its natural state, is the body primed to run, to get away from danger. Now, it developed in such a way that it only got into that state of fear when the danger was real, imminent, and bodily. And it had to get away. It did. And getting away was more important than anything. So opportunity, looking for anything, creative endeavor, drawing a cave painting. No, none of that happens. This has to happen first. Now, if the danger is being created by the mind rather than a real danger, that sense of fear is going to be primed. It needs to get away, but it can't get away from it because it's not here. It's not an imminent danger. It's a potential. It's a focus of attention. And so the body is in this state, we call it stress, okay, that's ready to run, doesn't know where to run to or where to run from, and therefore it's kind of sitting in this. This is the traumatic energy. You're stuck. This is trauma. You're stuck there. You can't run. You can't fight. You can't do anything about it. There's nowhere to go. Right? That's the freeze. That's what we experience as children. So you can start by simply saying, yes, I totally acknowledge the fact that could happen. Is it happening now? No. Is anything threatening me right now? No. So then, if nothing's really threatening me right now, then the fear I'm experiencing is imaginary. It's what might happen. Now, we have all been trained to put more emphasis on what the bad that might happen, because it's more important to defend ourselves against danger than it is to grab for opportunity. But we have as much authority for assuming what's going to happen will be good, will be beneficial, progressive, and wonderful, and take me to a safer space, than to be bad. Matter of fact, they love to say in New Age circles, like, fear and it will appear. Don't focus on your fears because then they're going to happen. I ask you, in your own life, your direct experience in your life, how many things that you were really afraid were going to happen actually happened? I'll bet it was a tiny minority of them. So from the perspective of your own life, you have more evidence for believing that really good things, the most positive outcome is going to take place, or at least a workable one is going to take place, of what might happen. You have more evidence for believing that than for the opposite. And yet we've all been trained to focus all of our attention on defending ourselves from what might go wrong rather than preparing ourselves for all the wonderful things that could go right. Right? And this is how fear gets transformed. What arises in you through this act, the process of inner reconciliation, where you are beginning to integrate all of these feelings. The feelings you thought were a problem become powers. The things you were afraid of begin to just kind of vanish. You see them as being creations of the mind and not a reality. In this recognition or this reconciliation, you begin to awaken within you your natural resources. And the real solution to fear is knowing deep in the body that whatever happens, I'm its equal. I don't need to know in advance, like have be prepared, because I am perpetually prepared. I will only need this inner resource when the environment calls on it. So I don't have to prepare in advance. When that demand takes place, when it's necessary for me to act in a certain way, I will act, and I will have all the resources needed to do that. Now, the more I am open to this whole inner space within me, the more I've reconciled with myself, the more I am not clutching to a particular sense of identity, the more fluent and flowing I become, the more I show up in any experience or any environment without an agenda, the more I have availability to me, the infinite, unlimited resources that are actually, truly yours. And this is the end of fear. So now the only time your body would feel fear is when there really was something to be afraid of, and it was right here and looking down your nose, and and in that moment, the inner resources to deal with it would appear, exercise themselves, and then disappear when they're no longer needed. You'd know when to run. You'd know when to fight. No one to hold them, no one to fold them. And this is what it means to be a whole, harmonious human being. That's the fullness of being human. How's that, Melissa K? Thank you for that question. Hello, Wendy. I got a heart from Wendy is. There's my friend Bob. Hello, dear teacher. Hello, dear friends. Robbie, thank you for answering my question regarding loving people. I remember an advice that said, stop trying to love people and try to understand them. Yes, which I kind of, once you understand them, you love them. And because it's not artificial. You're not trying to love a jerk. You understand why they are a jerk, which means you can totally see the pain, the limitations, the conditionings that put him into that shape, and with that comes the deepest compassion, because my God, he's just like me. It's different than for me, but it's just like me. My God, that's compassion. That's love. Ravi, thank you. Alpa Patel, what is energy? Thank you. Oh my God. I've done entire workshops on what is energy. The last one I did was your 4 powers of creation. Nobody really knows what energy is, right? It's actually, in science, it's a unit of measurement. It's not a thing, right? And they refer to it as potential and kinetic. So that the potential for something isn't known until the thing appears. But obviously the fact that it appears meant the potential for it to appear was there first, but it can't be seen. It's totally mysterious, right? This is what is known as energy. Now, when I use the word energy, people these days use it like vibe, like character, like kind of a subtle attribute, right? They've got a good energy about them. That means they stimulate a feeling inside of you. You can't put your finger on that. You can't say what that is, right? To answer it in the most purely spiritual terms, energy is a word that we have projected out into the universe as the primal substance out of which everything comes. Energy to spirituality is a misconception of consciousness. It is consciousness regarded as an external force. Right? Consciousness and energy are one. Energy you could think of as the kind of an essential form, and consciousness as being the absolute out of which it came. I mean, it is pure consciousness is the potential for anything. It is the infinitely unlimited. Because it is pure potential, it is unknowable, it is untouchable, it can't be seen, it can't be heard, it cannot be experienced at all. Because the moment an experience takes place, it is no longer pure potential, it has taken form. And you don't know what can take form until something takes form. Right? Even a thought arises out of the pure shunyata, the pure potential. Right? And energy is just our idea that somehow the form it takes is separate from the consciousness in which it's appearing. And so I call that energy. Ultimately, the energy is seen to be a misconception, an externalization of what in fact is consciousness knowing itself. And then knowing, being, and feeling are all one. That's the Sat Chit Ananda. So, oh, thank you for that. Hopefully that answer. That's a brief answer, but I'm keeping it brief because I'm not going 3 hours today. Let's see. Oops, jumped ahead. Ranak, any thoughts on why some spiritual seekers talk about guardian angels and spirits, good and bad, given non-duality doesn't? I think those people are imagining things. Non-duality takes you to the pure essential truth, the source of everything. I don't have to say whether guardian angels, and spirit guides and that sort of thing. I don't have to say they exist or not. Whatever existence they have arises from the same place the existence of this form arises from. Therefore, they will be of the same essence. Right? So somebody has the experience which they attribute to a guardian angel. You have an experience that you attribute to your car, right? What's the difference? We have a convention of thinking that says, okay, if it happens in this realm, it's real. If it happens in that realm, it isn't real. Right? I don't have a problem with the name angels, because what angel is and why angels have wings is the same reason why Hermes or Mercury have wings. They have it on their feet. Angels have it on their back. The wings signify a message from the absolute. Something in the pure potential has taken form, right? And so that message, the messenger, is the angel. That's what it represents. Right? Now, if I personify it and think of it as a being separate from consciousness or separate from God or separate from myself, what's the difference between that and me thinking some person I'm talking to is a separate being? There's no difference. There are no separate beings. And yet that doesn't mean that diversity and difference doesn't appear. We're seeing the same essence, the same self manifested in infinite number of forms. Guardian angels can be one of those forms. Aliens can be one of the forms. It doesn't matter what it is, right? We just completely dismiss them because they're outside of the realm of our convention of thinking. Well, in New Age and some spiritual people, their convention way of thinking is they think of it in terms of the panoply of angels and that sort of stuff. Fine, right? Go to the direct experience you're having. What am I experiencing in this moment? And don't call it angel or devil, and just don't even call it psychological or pattern or a trauma. Go direct to your experience. Right? And you'll see that the experience itself is unique. It's vital. It's real. I'm having this experience. And so if I use mythological language because it has maybe it's the experience of some information coming to me that I really needed, some insight, a breakthrough, an aha moment. And I personify that as the blessing of a guardian angel, feeling the rustling of their wings. What's the problem? Right? I can speak in those terms and I can say, but what it is this experience. And that doesn't belittle it, right? You understand? Because I know that there is no God as an independent being. That does not diminish for me one bit the idea of God, right? As an overarching sense of creative principle, or the idea of the goddess as the essential emptiness from which everything has come, right? If I want to be strictly Vedantic on it, right, then I show that every form is a projection, right, of the mind. But if it's a projection of the mind, and I know that it's that, that means that the angel and myself and God and being are all one. And that doesn't mean I have to now get rid of the angel. It means that there's no separation. I'm the angel is me. The messages come. Where do they come? They come from me. Who do they come to? They come to me, right? But this me is the infinite being. And so it doesn't discount any of them, right? If you pierce through just the myths of it or the stories about it or people's beliefs to it, to what is it really representing? Now you can love the angels. It's got pictures of the angels on the wall, because you will see the truth, the actual non-dual reality reflected in the form. And that's true non-duality. Non-duality is this is gone and there's just this vague, essence. It's to see that the essence and the manifestation of the essence are not two. That this is the nature of the absolute to manifest as form. And so the form and the formless are not two. The emptiness and form are not two. They are one. That's true non-duality. As you can see, watching your mind go back and forth, it's beyond, it transcends all human research or description. Okay. And so, yes, they're angels. And no, they're not. You see? So I love the images of the angels and the gods and fairies and wood nymphs and Bacchus, and it's just because they give life, right? They are life. Just like I love this body and the body of others that we get to hang out with, right? Because they are it. This is it. It's not an abstract place. This is it. Thank you, Renak. I imagine that's how it's pronounced. I am untouched watching body moving. What is it? What is the body moving? Well, all motion, all form is consciousness. You are watching sensations constantly transform themselves, aren't you? The concept is it is a body, right? And that's okay. The body as a concept, fine. It's useful. I could talk about the body. But what is your actual experience of a body? It is sensations constantly transforming themselves, be it sight, which is right, which or hearing. Any of your senses is consciousness, a particular vibratory frequency of consciousness. So when you're watching the body move, right, and you're curious about it, in order to understand what is being experienced, you must understand the nature of the experiencer. Who is watching the body move? Is that moving? Because now, once you know who it is that's having the experience, the nature of the experience becomes self-evident. It is myself. Ava, thank you, dear G, for your attention and answer. Your words mean so much to me. What would I do without such a great master? The great master is in you. There will always be a great master. Even when I leave this body 100 years from now or so, the great master the great master is the reality that is always here. Right? And it can take any mouth and use it, including this one. Christina, hello, GP. My question is, making on action or waiting for a life to bring the impulse? How do I know the difference? I can't make decisions, staying in a job or leave, move out of the country or not. Yeah. The only reason it's difficult to make a decision is because there hasn't been enough time spent yet. There's an impulse, I need to make this decision, but you're reaching into a place, right, that isn't strong enough to make that decision, right? And it's simply that sense of identity. Oh, you continued. If moving, then where? My inner dialogue. Thank you for the advice. So put aside all the questions for a moment, okay? And you'll notice that inside of you, there is a desire, and let's put it in the most general terms. There is a desire for a more free, more expansive, more, more rich and energetic life, right? Now just be with that desire all by itself, right? Now that desire was there first, obviously. Because if it wasn't there, it wouldn't have stimulated the decision making, and the kind of the inner conflict, all the stuff that's going, this inner dialogue that's going on. It wouldn't have been stimulated. Was this desire not here first? So let's go back here. Forget all of that, right? Because what that is the desire arises, and it arises into the emotional and psychological and intellectual environment that has already been established. But now that desire, in order for that to be fulfilled, this environment here of your current state of mind and emotion may not be adequate for that to happen. And so posing the question here, how do I do it? How do I do it? You can never get the answer because it's the wrong tool for the job. So what has to happen first is you put all of that aside and you let the desire transform the environment. Right? The way a plant, when it's growing, transforms the earth underneath it. It's in a constant exchange with it. And then it's in constant exchange as it pushes above the ground. Now it's giving off carbon dioxide and taking it. It's changing the environment. Matter of fact, in naturally occurring environments, permacultures, right? The various plants grew together, right? And one plant, which was a food, which was highly susceptible to certain insect, the one next to that was a repulsion to that insect, which protected the fruit plant. This is the interrelationship with. So it actually is creating the environment in which the fulfillment can take place. The energy of desire and the energy of fulfillment are the same. All desires come, batteries included. Our job is to allow ourselves to be transformed to the degree that this desire can actually begin to grow. Your only need is to create the environment in which it can grow. And say, how do I know the difference? God, I can't make it. I got to do this. I got to do that. Right? That's obviously not an environment conducive to it, is it? If it was, it would have worked, but it hasn't. Okay, put all that aside and just be with the desire. And this is a subtle one, but this is a real killer, right? The heart is only concerned with this desire. The mind starts asking, how do I do it? What if you don't need to? What if you don't need to do it? So the first thing I do is have people own the desire purely, right? No judgment, no criticism. It's a good thing. Should I have it? Should I not? How do I get it? Put all of that aside and just be with the pure energy of desire. And notice, yes, there's a certain discomfort in it. And because there's a discomfort, we immediately want to run to fulfillment, right? I got to get it, got to get it, got to get it, or suppress it because it's uncomfortable. But instead be with it because it's not a negative discomfort. It's the energy that is moving life. And of course, if it's moving life, it's moving it from where it is to where it's going to be, which is always going to be a certain degree of discomfort. Right? So actually begin to get used to the feeling of the energy of desire, and you'll find it's actually quite pleasurable. Right? When you have a desire to be with somebody, right? The desire to get physically close to someone, isn't the desire itself just sweet as hell? Getting there is half the fun, right? There's an intensity about it that builds, right, up to its fulfillment. And if it wasn't there, there'd be no fulfillment. So you can't have one without the other. So put all just, okay, I've got this desire in its most general form. I want more freedom. I want more self-expression. I want more intimacy, all of those kinds of things. And the mind has said, okay, well, then what I have to do, stay in this job or leave. Right? The mind immediately jumps in and starts trying to manipulate the circumstances. Too soon. Put that aside and instead let the energy itself transform the inner environment. Right? You make it safe for it to grow, and it will make the transformation. It will start adjusting thoughts, attitudes. It'll start opening things up. It'll start seeing opportunities where you didn't see them before. Right? This is harmonizing with. This is non-dual because you are not seeing desire as something separate. The first appearance of anything is the desire for it. If God wants you to do something, what's the best way for her to get you to do it? The best guaranteed way you're going to do it. Force you, threaten you. If you don't do it, you're going to go to hell. The best way is to make you want to. Done. Completely self-generated. So think of this desire as the first appearance of what it is you actually want. It is not separate from that. It is not something you have to endure until you get it, nor is it up to the mind to figure out how to do it. That it itself is the appearance, and you didn't create it. It is the universe itself, God herself, whatever you want to call it, has decreed, this shall be so. Let there be light. Speaking into creation. And the first impulse of that bubbling up from the absolute, from pure potential, is the feeling of desire. Well, the primary one is the feeling of I am. And without that, there can be nothing else. And that sense, on top of that, you feel the desire, impulse, interest, curiosity, all of these characteristics. And our job is to free them from the limitations of thought. And to do that, you see them for what they really are. Every desire is an angel. It is a message. Right? It is a leading, a directing. If you see him as such, you'll pay so much attention to it. You'll just love it. You'll take your hands off of it, and you'll even become curious as to what is it actually going to become. The way a parent would look at their child, not having any idea who they're going to be. What are they going to be like? You're looking at a 2-year-old playing. What are they going to be like when they're 20? Have no idea. Right? Your job is just protect them and be completely thrilled by what they become. I'll leave that for now. Thank you, Christina. Very helpful, says Milo. You're welcome. Beautiful, says Melissa. Great. Thank you. You're welcome. Why is it so hard to act and relate out of love and intelligence? Because you're trying to do it as a discipline. You're trying to do it as a moral behavior. I need to be more loving. So you're simply trying to force your behavior to be different. And in a certain sense, obviously that's better. I'd rather be in a room full of well-behaved egos than the opposite, right? But you're going to find it hard, right? Because you're finding an inner conflict between, you're imposing it from the outside. Instead, discover the nature of love intelligence as your very being, so that you aren't trying to act out love, that you are love itself, which means everything you do is love. Knowing that, everything you do will start conforming itself to a higher and higher sense of love, but love as being, not love as attainment. Right? Being told you have to be more loving, be in service. Nobody can really do that, because even then, you're still serving self-love. You're doing it because you think you have to, right? and there's going to be some reward for it. So it isn't pure love. It isn't just pure giving. That doesn't completely dismiss it, right? Again, we oftentimes will need to do what's loving under the circumstances, even though we don't really want to do it. But the spiritual goal is to get to the place where it's self-motivated, where love and intelligence are not acquired. They are your nature. They are inherent. I see here. Okay. Faith. How do you talk to the energy of safety to make it expand and allow more space? Well, right there, you said to make it expand. Safety, goddammit, expand. It's not safe, is it? Right? Be safe. Allowing for more opportunities, which I know you want, means allowing more you to allow more of what you are feeling and internally to be there, and then to engage in the inquiry in it. Oh, I know you're here to keep me safe. What are you protecting me from? Now that's a question, and I'm talking to that energy. You're really restricting my life. What are you protecting me from? Right? And is it possible? Is it possible for us to have this better life, as I see? I think it's a better life. It's what I want. Is it possible to have that safely? Because if it isn't, you're going to win. There's nothing I can do. And fine, I'll give this up because it's a waste of my time and I'll find something else. Right? But right now, this is what I want. I really do want this. And you're saying no. Okay. Can we work this out? Right? My desire for this isn't going to go away. Right? So we're going to have to find a way to work together. Right? So is there a safe way for you and this to get along? So I can actually have this in some form. Maybe I have to alter it because the way I'm going about it isn't safe, but is it possible? Now you're addressing the internal energies. And, like I was saying before about angels, these are all you too. So I speak in terms of the chakras and the various archetypes and that sort of stuff, as they're not entities either, right? And yet I can speak to them, right? I can call that the angel of safety and the angel of expansion, right? Because they are that kind of a messenger. And if you see them in those terms, like, oh, they're not so bad. They're not out to get me. I don't have to make it do something. I simply have to invite it to say, can you find a way for me to safely have this? And at first it might say, no, it has to be this way. You go, does it really? I know it's the best strategy because if I don't get anything at all, I'm safe. But this isn't going to go away. This is going to be a pebble in your shoe. This desire is here. It's part of me too. I can't get rid of it. We've suppressed it, but it isn't going away. So I'm giving it equal time. I really want this. So please help me. Help me find a way to have this safely. That would be an energy. That would be a dialogue that was acknowledging and honoring it, everything as it is, the angels as they are, right? And that in that honoring, you have created this space, right? Because you can't force it. The act of forcing it puts it more deeply in defense, because forcing it out of keeping you safe ain't going to happen. You've got to show it that it's safe to do it, and then it will. All right. Okay. Me too. Thanks. Ava, thanks for today. So important to me. Thank you so much, Sifu. Good. I got through, only 8 minutes over. I'm getting better holding the line. Thank you to all of you. Thank you. So good to have you here. Those of you who are going to celebrate some kind of a costume thing, more part to it. This is my costume. This is my. I'm spending Halloween pretending to be a spiritual teacher. Okay, everybody. I love you all. Namaste.